All right, what is going on, guys? Happy Sunday. We got the final NFL regular season slate of the year. Sorry for the couple minute delay here. Was reviewing some news that we got from the Bills, and I guess we can go over that right now before we get into everything else. So we just got news that Matt Barkley will see significant or meaningful snaps versus Miami. So that leads me to believe, obviously, that the Bills starters are not going to play a lot in this game. So that makes them a lot riskier here. And then we're going to review what else we got. Let's see. Again, yeah, they were active, but the Bills starters are really I'm going to avoid the Bills starters. Devontae Graham will play. We did just get that news. Le'Veon will be active but won't play much. So that's the Chiefs situation, they are resting a lot of starters already, but then it's a situation of does McCole Hardman, how much does McCole Hardman play? How much does Demarcus Robinson play, right? So there's obviously some risk there. Cam Akers said he will try to play. Again, if he's out, I think Malcolm Brown looks like a pretty nice value. And that's kind of what we got so far. So let's start it with quarterback today. Which teams need to win today? I'll mention that. I'll talk about the teams that are actually playing for something now. And yeah, the Bills are, I guess they're not going to be playing their starters a ton. So Mahomes, I don't think he's even playing. We'll sit out. So Patrick Mahomes is out of play. Lamar Jackson, the Ravens are still playing for something here. So yes, they're in the playoffs at the moment, but I think if things go wrong, they could realistically be eliminated. So they're gonna be playing for something. The matchup is solid here against the Bengals, and Lamar Jackson obviously has that floor with his rushing ability. So Lamar is a guy I feel like you can feel pretty safe targeting. I haven't seen any sort of news of them limiting him at all. So I think Lamar Jackson is firmly in play at the top in both formats. Now, a guy like Deshaun Watson, they have nothing to play for, but it doesn't sound like they're going to take it easy on him at all. He says, I expect him to play and help us win. If we're up by 50 at half, then maybe we'll take him out. So it doesn't sound like there's going to be any limitations here for Deshaun Watson. Again, obviously there's some risk, right? There's a little risk that they're not playing for anything, but I think Deshaun Watson will be full go here. I really like him on this slate. Love the matchup. Again, this is the highest over under the slate. So yeah, Deshaun at the top, really do like him. Thoughts on John Brown now? Yeah, so John Brown I am avoiding. I'm not going to those Bills. I just don't feel good about it, especially with that report coming out. So no more John Brown because exactly. That's why. No more John Brown. All right, so so Deshaun Watson, yes, I like him at the top in both formats. Again, Josh Allen's now an avoid for me. They are just all the Bills have several stars inactive. Allen is not. But they said they're going to give Matt Barkley meaningful snaps. So do not play Josh Allen today. I just think there's no reason to risk that. Kyler Murray against the Rams, more of a contrarian option. It's probably not for me. Now, Aaron Rodgers, they're still playing for some here at 7-4. The matchup sure is not the best against the Bears, but this is Aaron Rodgers. Devonta Adams is going to be really, really popular, I think, on the slate. So I think Aaron Rodgers, even in a not the best matchup, isn't playing both formats because, again, the Packers are playing for something, and there's not a ton of teams that are. So after Watt interviewed, Texans probably should try and win this game. Yeah, I think the Texans are full go. I haven't seen anything of possibly resting a guy like Deshaun Watson. So I think they're a full go, even though they're not playing for much. Now Brady, this is where I'm I like the matchup for him. They've already clinched a postseason spot. Will they be full go? There's some question marks. So I'm just a little uneasy about it. They got off to the huge lead against Detroit, and the starters didn't play the second half. So I think you can still go here in GPPs because it's Tom Brady and it's against Atlanta. But I don't know if I would go here in cash games. So yes, Tom Brady's still in play, but again, there's does he get the full workload too? Right, he's 42, so we don't know. Minnesota stack, I like that. I really like that game is a meaningless game. There's nothing to play for, but both teams are looking full go. So I like that Minnesota-Detroit game for sure. Brady's always underowned. He is a little bit underowned. Again, so you can go there in GPPs with Brady because of the matchup. Herbert at 7-1, for me, I would just rather get to those other spend-up quarterbacks. Like, I would rather play Watson. I would rather play Lamar. I would rather play Aaron Rodgers. Tannehill's at 7K. So there's also, like, what's the situation? I think if Miami wins, I forget what the exact situation is, but if this Miami-Buffalo game goes the other way, Tennessee will have nothing to play for. So it's just like, got to keep an eye on that game. So there's a lot, obviously, week 7 to kind of monitor here. But Derrick Henry, I think, is going to be one of the more popular running backs in the slate, obviously, because there's just a lot of value. So one way to pivot off that ownership is you kind of can go to like Tannehill and A.J. Brown, right? That passing game. Obviously, the matchup is fantastic here, and Henry's going to pick up a good amount of ownership. So thoughts on DeAndre Swift? I do like him. Again, I'm pretty high on that Detroit-Minnesota game as long as Stafford can stay healthy. Yeah, Taysom Hill, they probably will bring him in the red zone. But, yeah, so Tannehill, in my opinion, I think is a nice pivot off of I think will be a pretty chalky Derrick Henry. Now, yeah, we have Cousins, we have Stafford in the same game. Again, they're not playing for anything, but they're both full go. Now, obviously, the Stafford side is a little riskier, right? He tried playing against Tampa Bay, got banged up, couldn't come back in. So he's dealing with 3 injuries here. Ankle, rib, thumb, but he's going to play. So this will significantly lower the ownership on Stafford just because he's dealing with all these injuries. But I don't mind taking a shot on him in GPPs. Obviously not a cash game play, but and this game has potential to shoot out. 2 bad defenses, so I like this game for GPPs a good amount. With Stafford, with Cousins, probably Cousins is safer because he's not really dealing with any injuries. You can take a shot at Matt Ryan at 5'9" just because, like Houston, Atlanta has a not good defense, so they're usually playing from behind, and Matt Ryan's been having to air it out. Now, would I go there in cash games? Probably not. I think I spend up on quarterback and cash. But I think he is a viable punt in GPPs. Also, Mitch Trubisky, just because Chicago is playing for something here, and they need to win. So, it's not like Green Bay has a stout defense, so I think Trubisky, like, you could punt with him and feel decent about it because they're not going to pull him, right, unless he gets injured. So, that's kind of how I feel about quarterback. Really, for cash games, though, I think you spend up on, like, Lamar or Deshaun Watson or Aaron Rodgers. That's probably what I would do. Now, again, that Minnesota-Detroit game kind of intrigues me with Cousins and Stafford. And then you have, Matt Ryan, you have Trubisky. So you do have some punt options here down at the bottom. Love Tannehill. Yeah, so Tannehill, again, I think Tannehill's a really nice pivot off of a chalky Derrick Henry. Thoughts on backup quarterback starting today for value? I don't think I would do it. Like, we have the Rams backup. Let's go to I just don't think it's necessary, honestly. There's so much good value, right, with like running back and wide receiver that I don't think it's necessary to take a shot in one of those backup quarterbacks. Where are the Rams? So like Wolford, like, don't know much about this guy. He's starting. He's 4.9. I mean, he'll be really, really low owned, but I don't want to do it. You can go to Mason Rudolph, but again, I don't think it's necessary here to play one of those backup quarterbacks on this 15-game slate. I think there's better value at running back and wide receiver. So, yeah, I don't think I would. Thoughts on Mitch? Yeah, Mitch is a decent punt for sure. So let's move on to running back. What teams are playing for something? Well, it's there's a few teams that are really, really playing for something, and then some teams that are kind of playing for something. So that's a hard question to answer. I like Watson. Yeah, I think Watson looks like a pretty good option. I don't see anything of limitations there. Yeah, we'll get to Josh Reynolds. I think Walford's fat. I honestly don't know much about him. I'm not really considering him because I just think there's better value on the slate. 3 running backs for cash. Yeah, I would do 3 running backs for cash. That's usually what I do if I'm playing cash games. But all right, let's move on to running back today, guys. So no Kamara, no Cook, no McCaffrey. Derrick Henry's going to be pretty popular. I think he obviously has a ton of upside here in a fantastic matchup. And I think he's going to be really, really popular in cash games too. But for GPPs, obviously you don't have to play him, right? There's a good amount of like good running back plays in the 6 to 7K range we'll get to. And if Henry's just going to get all that ownership, I think it makes sense to pivot to one of those guys in GPPs. Michael French with a $5 super chat. Thank you, man. The best in the business. Keep doing your thing, brother. Thanks for the insights and good luck today. Thank you very much, man. I really appreciate the support. Congrats on the big night yesterday, and thanks again. Maybe J-Mart. No, but my friend actually made this for me. DK DFS hat. Anyone fading Henry? I mean, again, fading Henry is a risk, but I think you can do it in GPPs. I think you can definitely do it in GPPs because there's a good amount of pretty decent plays in the mid-range who will now get to. So, yes, it's a really, really scary fade because of the matchup, but let's talk about some of these running backs I think you can pivot to if you want to. So, Dave Montgomery, I think will be pretty low owned. But he continues to put up big fantasy outing after big fantasy outing, 5 straight games of 20-plus fantasy points. Again, Green Bay is not really a super strong defense. Montgomery is kind of their bell cow back. He's at 32 and 23 carries last couple games, and he's involved in the pass game. So even if they do fall behind here, I think he's gonna be still very much involved. So I kind of like him as a contrarian GPP play. I think he'll be very, very low owned. What's up? Good morning, man. Talk me out of players named TY. We'll get to that. Yeah, with John Brown, we'll get to that. I think there's a couple options you can go to. You can go to Josh Reynolds. You can go to Guyton. You could take a shot on Keelan Cole. There's like 3 or 4 guys that you can pivot off John Brown, but I would do it. I would not play John Brown now, just off of everything we saw. It doesn't sound like they're going to play a ton here. Yeah, we'll get to Ronald Jones too, that ton of work. What does that mean, right? So, Gabe Davis. My issue with Gabe Davis is, would he be a guy that would play even if the starters get benched? It's like a fringe, right? He's been a pretty big part of this offense when John Brown has been out. So, I'll get to that here in a sec. So let me continue with, talked about Montgomery. Yeah, so Nick Chubb at 7.6. I think he is always in play for GPP. He's kind of had an outlier performance as far as receiving game work. Had 5 catches and 5 targets. We rarely see that from Nick Chubb. I think, I would personally rather get to some other plays just because, again, they still have Kareem Hunt here. So it's like he's not going to be a true bell cow back. And Kareem Hunt's at 5.9. He's not like Chubb is definitely the guy that gets more and more carries. So, but they're still going to give some work to Kareem Hunt. It always just makes it a little bit uneasy for me. Like Nick Chubb is definitely the better running back, but I would say they're more contrarian plays. Now, Eckler, I'm a big Austin Eckler fan, but just based off what we've seen, they've kind of been running a 3-headed monster rotation at running back. So, Eckler is just kind of a stay away. I think you can still do it, but it's just the workload is going down. 10 carries. Again, they have Balaj, they have Justin Jackson. They're giving some work, so they're not really playing for anything. It just worries me a bit there with Eckler. Now, Jonathan Taylor is, I think, one of those guys you can look to pivot off of a chalky Derrick Henry, right? Colts are playing for something. He's a guy that's been getting a healthy amount of carries last 3 weeks, 20, 16, and 18. Is a bit involved in the passing game, and it's a fantastic matchup. They should be playing from ahead, so I think this is one of the pivots you can do to save some money if you don't want to play Derrick Henry. Taylor is one guy I kind of like as a pivot. Other running back options, so a couple other guys in the mid-range. I think Myles Gaskin at 6.5K, just because he is, when healthy, he is their bell cow back. 18, 21, 14 carries. He's involved in the passing game, so I think he's a pretty solid play here. I do have interest in Myles Gaskin. Again, Miami is playing for something here, so I think he looks like a pretty safe option at that price. In both, I think you can go there in both formats, that being Myles Gaskin. What do you think about DeAndre Swift? I'll go to DeAndre Swift. I think DeAndre Swift is a pretty nice play here. So let's first talk about Zeke. Zeke's at 6'4". My issue with Ezekiel Elliott is going to be splitting the work with Tony Pollard. So yeah, he had over 100 yards the last game, but I think he's still viable. But Pollard has been getting more involved later on in the season, right? So it's not like Zeke is getting this full workload. Pollard had 9 carries, 1 catch. Zeke is still the guy that should get more touches, but it's the same like Chubb Hunt situation, makes them just a little riskier. Now, with a guy like DeAndre Swift, again, I told you guys I'm a pretty big fan of this game. Even though the teams have nothing to play for, Swift is a rookie, right? It's not like they're going to have they're not going to run Adrian Peterson in the ground. His snaps have been going down. Swift has been going up. Good matchup here. Stafford is playing, which is a huge, huge boost. And again, he's involved in the pass game with 5 targets in the last 4 games. So I kind of like DeAndre Swift today. I think he's fine in both formats. And again, as long as Stafford stays healthy, I think you can definitely see a nice game here from DeAndre Swift in the mid-range. Other options at running back, I don't mind Madison on the opposite side. I don't think he's going to be super popular. But with no Dalvin Cook, he's going to be their number 1 back. He's still like a decently talented back. He's had some big games, right? He had that Seattle game, he went for 20 carries and over 100 yards. He is a decent pass-catching back. So I think Madison is definitely in play in the mid-range as well. Now, Cam Akers, this is something to monitor here. Questionable, is likely to try and play. So does he play? Does he not? I'm not sure. If he does miss, then I think where is Malcolm Brown? Then I think Malcolm Brown is actually pretty or not Marquise Brown. Malcolm Brown, I think, would be a pretty solid value play. Now, sure, right? There's no Jared Goff, so the offense is going to be affected. But he would be like the de facto number 1 back at 4-3. I think he would be definitely a pretty solid value play if, in fact, Cam Akers is out. Now, Cam Akers himself, just the fact that they're like uneasy, like he's going to likely try to play. I don't think he gets full workload. At least that's my guess. So I don't know if I would go there on this 15-game slate. Couple other running backs I want to mention here in the mid-range. So Jeff Wilson Jr. at 6K with no Mostert had 22 carries, had 183 yards. Probably not going to get that again, but I think he is, he basically got bell cow work. San Francisco was a team historically that would always rotate backs, and it was good to see that he was kind of their main back. So I think he is a solid play at this price. Again, 49ers not really playing for much, but I think he is a guy that will get a good amount of work. 6K is a fair price. Definitely a viable play. Now, Ronald Jones, again, they said they want to give him a ton of work in this game. Can we trust that? I don't know. The matchup is really solid here. And they said, Fournette is inactive, right? I believe I read that right. Keep Fournette active instead of LaShawn. Okay, never mind. But it's just hard to trust Bruce Arians, in my opinion, especially when Fournette is there. So, yes, you can take a shot at Ronald Jones' GPPs, but you're never going to feel good about it. Le'Veon Bell, active but not expected to play much, so not going to go there. Melvin Gordon's at 5.7. He's like their only like really talented, healthy running back on the roster. Again, Phillip Lindsay out. Royce Freeman will probably get a couple touches here. The downside with Melvin Gordon is Denver's offense. It's just not a great offensive unit, but I think he's a guy that you can look to in the mid-range, should get, basically a majority of the work at running back, is involved in the passing game. So I think Melvin Gordon is a decent play. You can go to him in both formats, in my opinion. Are you fading Henry? So I'm not a big Derrick Henry guy, and I know he's going to be the ultimate chalk. And I'm only playing GPP, so I am fading him. But it's a super, super risky fade for sure. David updated it in the, or made a post about John Brown and talked about a couple pivots there. So you can check that out on Patreon. But yeah, I updated that. So I would not play John Brown. Everything else is still good with as far as the other core plays. So yeah, check that one out if you need a pivot from John Brown. But I would not play John Brown anymore. Let's see, other running back options like Gio against Baltimore, probably not for me, even though he's been better last couple weeks. And then now we get to like the punt running backs. So there's a decent amount of viable plays here at running back. Let's see. So first, I want to mention. Let's go to Daryl Williams for the Chiefs. So I don't think Le'Veon plays a lot, if at all. So Daryl Williams, will probably lead the backfield. He's a good pass-catching back. Obviously, he's not playing with Patrick Mahomes, right? But 4.8 for probably a starting running back is intriguing in GPPs. Probably can't do that in cash because I think they will have Darwin Thompson involved here. So it probably would be like those two backs mainly. So that's why I think like the Chiefs backs are more GPP plays as far as, value goes at running back. Let's see. Couple other guys I want to mention here. So let's go to Dare Ogunbowale. What a name. Let's go to Dare. He's at 4.5K, so he got majority of the carries here for Jacksonville. He had 14 carries, he had 3 catches and 5 targets, expected to remain the starting running back with no James Robinson. Now, matchup against the Colts, not amazing. Not playing with a very talented quarterback, so I think for me, I would probably prefer a couple other value plays who will get to a running back, but I think he will be lower owned, and he still should be, get a good amount of the carries. I think you can look to Dare for a pivot off of some of the chalkier cheap running back plays. All right, so 3 more running backs I want to mention for cheap. One being Ty Johnson. All right, let's go to running back. He is at 4.3K, expected to serve as the Jets' feature back. So, it's a Jets running back, so it's never a great feeling, but he's a talented receiving back. He had 6 catches and 6 targets a couple weeks ago. He's a former Lion. I actually am familiar with him. I think he's still a pretty decent running back, and I think he should get a majority of the work here based just off, feature back Sunday. So, I think he's firmly in play in both formats here. Again, he's a Jets running back, so not going to feel like super amazing about it, but I think he will get a good amount of the carries. He's involved in the passing game. I think Ty Johnson playable in both formats here as a value play. All right, a couple other guys I want to mention here. Let's first go to Rodney Smith for the Panthers. So the reason that Rodney Smith is firmly in play here for value, I think in both formats, is because there's no McCaffrey and there's no Mike Davis. So he is expected to be their starting running back. He was already filling in a bit, kind of spelling Mike Davis. He would get, a couple touches, a couple of catches, and I think he is projected to be their main back here. Flat min price, involved in the passing game. We know the Panthers like involving their running backs in the passing game, right? With McCaffrey, obviously, when he played, with Mike Davis. So Rodney Smith is a min price. I think he is certainly in play here in both formats. So I guess the slight issue is they still have, let's go to Carolina running backs. They still have Trenton Cannon they can use. He will mix in. I think what's likely to happen here is Rodney Smith will kind of be the Mike Davis role and play, a good amount of the game, and Trenton Cannon will kind of fill in for what Rodney Smith did last week. That's my best guess. So I would probably feel a little bit more comfortable with Rodney Smith as opposed to Cannon. And then finally, we got to talk about it. Let's go to the Saints. So this is where we're going to see the chalk. Where are the New Orleans Saints? Here we go. Running back, Saints. So, Kamara out. Latavius Murray out. Washington out. Ty Montgomery and practice squad running back. That's it. And we know the Saints really like involving their running backs in the passing game. And another positive, Ty Montgomery was a receiver before he was a running back. So all these things are shaping up for Ty Montgomery, I think, to be probably one of the best value plays on the board. I think he's one of the top plays in cash. You can look to him obviously in both formats. The slight concern, I guess, is we just haven't seen a ton from him this year. And they called up a practice squad running back, so maybe they give him some work. They have Taysom Hill they can bring in as well. So it's like, yeah, there still is some competition at running back, but everything I've seen, I think he will be the starting running back. And again, the Saints love targeting their running backs out of the backfield. So Ty Montgomery, for those reasons, I think is one of the best running back plays for value on the slate. He's going to be super, super popular. For cash games, I think you probably do it. But that's really it for running back for me. I'm trying to think. Dario Ogunbowale, so many questions. But yeah. Ty Johnson or Ty Montgomery? I think I would go Ty Montgomery. That is close, Kyle. But the reason I'll go Montgomery is just because it's the Saints offense and Drew Brees is playing whereas Ty Johnson is playing for the Jets. That is close, and I think obviously you could play both if you want to. Jefferson or Thielen, I'll go Justin Jefferson. They could, again, they could Taysom. They could. Yeah, again, there's no guarantee on week 17, right? There's a ton up in the air here. Let's see, Bruce Arians wants to give Jones a ton of work. Yeah, so I think you could go to Ronald Jones, Jeremiah, but I'm always a little bit uneasy about it. I do like the matchup for him against Atlanta. It just, does Bruce Arians stick to his word? So yes, I think he's a decent play in the mid-range for sure. All right, let's move on to wide receiver now. So, wide receiver, the guys at the top obviously look pretty good. Devontae Adams, Green Bay is still playing for something. Devontae just has a ton of upside in any matchup. He's matchup proof. So, in one of the top plays in both formats, in my opinion, there's so much value on the slate. You just lock in such a high floor. So, yeah, gotta like Devontae at the top. I still have interest in Calvin Ridley too. Sure, they're not playing for anything, but there's no Julio Jones. They're most likely going to be playing from behind here. He's getting targeted a ton. Last 3 games, no Julio, 29, 35, and 20 fantasy points. Ridley firmly in play at the top. Now, Stephon Diggs, again, cross it off. Don't go to the Bills anymore. Do not play the Bills. I do not trust any of them now after what the reports we got. So, yeah, do not play Stephon Diggs. Evans or Godwin or pay up for Adams. See, that's a tough one. I obviously like the matchup better for those Tampa Bay wide receivers, but will they play the full game? I don't know. So I think for safety, it's probably Adams, just because Green Bay is for sure playing for something, right? Montgomery or Rodney Smith. I think Montgomery, but I think you can definitely play them both for value. I think they're two of the better plays for value. Marvin Jones or Shepard. That's tough because I love Marvin Jones' upside, but obviously there's some risk with Stafford's health. So you're saying in cash, I guess Shepard, but I like the upside more in Jones if Stafford can stay healthy. But all right, let's continue on with wide receivers. So again, don't play Diggs now. The Bills' offense is an offense I'm off at the moment. Originally, they were a team I was high on, but after the reports that we've got, I would not play the Bills. Other options at wide receivers. So Allen Robinson, 7-7. Don't know if he's going to be super popular. He's like a nice bring back. If you're playing Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams stack, I think a bring back here is Allen Robinson. And then you can kind of go value from there just because there's so many value plays in the slate. The Bears should be playing from behind here. He's clearly their number 1 wide receiver, has a ton of upside. So I kind of like Allen Robinson here in both formats. Again, the Bears need to win today. Now, the Vikings, sure, they're not playing for anything here, but love the matchup. And I think these guys go a little bit lower owned. Jefferson, Thielen against Detroit. These guys can light it up here in this matchup. I really like both for GPPs. I do. I prefer Jefferson just because the targets has been higher on him recently. I think he has a little bit more upside currently, but really do like both the Minnesota wide receivers. Now, with the Tampa Bay wide receivers, again, this is the tricky part, right? They're technically not playing for much here. Do they play the full game? I'm not sure. So you can go to these guys in GPPs, but for cash, I probably wouldn't do it. What Bills report? So I can go over it again, but Matt Barkley will see meaningful snaps versus Miami, and then there are question marks about whether the rest of the team would play a decent amount. So it's just there's too much up in the air there for the Bills that I just wouldn't do it. Oh yeah, guys, we're at 250 viewers. Thank you for checking out the stream. Obviously going to continue on here, but if you enjoy this content, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Let's try to aim for 75 likes in this one for NFL Sunday. I think that's a pretty fair play. Richie James, still good value. I think he is. And we'll get those value receivers here in a sec. But, all right, so again, Minnesota receivers we talked about. Other options, again, A.J. Brown's the A.J. Brown Tannehill stack is like a perfect pivot off of a chalky Derrick Henry and GPPs. Right, so these guys I kind of like as a pivot off of the chalk there. I do have interest in Brandon Cooks. Again, I don't think these Texans, even though they're not playing for much, it doesn't sound like they're going to rest anyone. So, like, Cooks is the clear guy to pair with Watson if you do play Watson. I'm pretty high on Watson. You could also save a little bit and go down to Chad Hansen, who didn't do much last week, but still played 96% of the snaps. So, I have interest in both these Texans receivers. Obviously prefer Cooks there at the top. The Steelers receivers with no Big Ben, I'm not going to go there. This next tier of wide receivers is kind of gross for me. There's not a ton I like in this range. Like T.Y., yeah, he's viable for sure in a great matchup. He's been turning it on lately. Targets have been going up from 11, 7, 6, 7. So I think he's a fine option there. Other kind of plays in the mid-range. Again, Kiki Cutie playing out of slot. Texans should probably be playing from behind because they play from behind in basically every game. I think he's a decent option at that price. Devontae Parker is in. Jakeem Grant is out. Dealing with the hamstring injury obviously is a little bit worrisome, but Miami is playing for something here. So I think you can take a shot on Devontae, but more of a GPP play for me. Now, yeah, someone asked Shepard versus Marvin Jones. So for me, I like the upside more on Marvin Jones if Stafford can stay healthy. And that is a big if, right? Because he got banged up early in the game last week and came out. So there is risk involved here. But I'm pretty high on this Lions-Vikings game if praying Stafford can stay healthy. Because for me, I'm getting a good amount of exposure to this one for GPPs. So I'm really, really hoping Stafford can stay healthy in this one. Because I think people are obviously worried about that. It's going to lower the ownership in these Lions. I'm willing to take the risk because I'm only playing GPPs. So I love the upside here in Marvin Jones. I think the safer play is probably Shepard just because of Stafford's health. It's Stafford's health alone. Shepard's had 7 and 12 targets last couple games. It's a good matchup. Daniel Jones is healthy. So, yeah, the safer option is probably Shepard, but I like the upside a lot more on Marvin Jones Jr. Next tier of wide receivers, so Mike Williams with no Keenan Allen. He's got the boomer bust nature, but he should be targeted more with Keenan Allen out of the offense. He's got the big play upside. More suited for GPPs just because the boomer bust nature, plus the fact that he is always injured, always dealing with injuries. So I just never feel good about him in a cash game setting. But for GPPs, of course, you can go there. So now we're getting to the cheaper wide receivers, and there's probably 10 or so viable plays down in this range. So there's a lot of value here. Shenault and the other wide receivers for the Jags, sure, matchup maybe not necessarily the best, but the Colts defense hasn't been the best recently. We have Shenault, we have Keelan Cole, we have Chris Conley. These three are going to be the top 3 wide receivers with no DJ Chark and with no Colin Johnson. So I think these guys are fine punt options. Shenault the last 3 weeks have had 11, 6, and 7 targets. He's been targeted the most. He will get a carry or 2 here and there. So I think my favorite Jags value wide receiver would be Shenault. But you can look to punt with Conley or Keelan Cole. McCole Hardman is where it's like, what are they going to do with him, right? Because they're resting Watkins, they're resting the main starters. He is playing. Will they go full go with him? I'm not sure. So there's a little bit of risk. Obviously, not playing with Mahomes either is a downgrade. But when he's out there, he's probably going to be their number 1 wide receiver playing with Chad Henne. So, yeah, there's some risk involved with McCole Hardman. But if he plays the full game, I think he has upside. I do like the upside here in Jerry Jeudy. He had 15 targets the last game. It's just a matter of can Drew lock in the ball, right? It's just Denver offense has really struggled. Judy's a talented wide receiver. He's at 4-2 in a good matchup. I think he is firmly in play here for value. Couple plays at 4-1 I want to mention. Darnell Mooney is still playing a majority of the game. He has big play upside. We really haven't seen the huge game from Mooney. Again, he should play majority of the game. They should be playing from behind. I think he is certainly in play here for value at 4.1. Also, don't mind Chad Hansen. Again, he didn't do much that last week. Struggled last couple weeks, only 1 and 2 catches, but he's still playing majority of the game. He played 96% of the snaps that last week. He's got Deshaun Watson as quarterback, so I think you can punt with him if you want to. Ty Johnson, again, with no Keenan Allen, it's going to be him, it's going to be Guyton, it's going to be Mike Williams. All 3 should play a majority of the game. I think he's definitely viable here. 7, 5, and 3 targets the last 3 games. So, yeah, Ty Johnson, certainly in play for value. And then, let's see. Again, Jakeem Grant is out for Miami, so do not play him. The Bills, originally, I was pretty high on John Brown because I thought they're going to be full go here. But the reports recently, I'm getting off the Bills wide receivers. I don't trust it. So I'm going to look elsewhere. A couple other value wide receivers I do want to mention. So Keelan Cole, again, it's going to be him. It's going to be Chris Conley. It's going to be Shenault. These 3 are going to play majority of the game for the Jags. So I think he's certainly in play at that price. Also, Jalen Guyton. Again, no Keenan Allen. He's had 5 and 6 targets in back-to-back games. I think he is viable as a value play. There's a lot of guys down here. Let's see, who else? Josh Reynolds. So there's no Cooper Kupp. Obviously, he's not playing with Jared Goff, but Reynolds should be out there basically majority of the game. He's at min price. So I think he is definitely a viable punt play at 3.2. And then finally, Richie James. The 49ers are pretty thin at wide receiver. Here, let's go to San Francisco. It's a good matchup, and they're thin with no Ayuk, no Deebo Samuel. So, number 1 and number 2 wide receivers here should be Richie James and Kendrick Bourne. Richie James is cheaper, so I think he's a viable punt play. He had that one big game when all those wide receivers were out. So obviously he's got some talent. He's a speedy guy. I think he is firmly in play for value. And then let's see, was there anyone else I wanted to mention here as a value play? That's probably it for me. I'll get to questions here, guys, at the end. I want to finish it up with tight end and defense. So, tight end, don't play Travis Kelce. Darren Waller is in play firmly because tight end is always a weak position, and Waller's just a guy that you can lock in a pretty high floor from. Last 4 games, 48, 14, 33, and 19 fantasy points. So, with there being value all over the place, and with tight end always being a weak position, I think it makes sense to get to a guy like Darren Waller because you're just locking in a pretty high floor with him. Also, don't mind George Kittle at 6K. Sure, again, they're not playing for anything. He played about 50% of the snaps, but 4 catches and 5 targets, and good matchup, plus the fact that the 49ers are so thin at wide receiver. I like Kittle a good amount for GPPs. I do. I think the snaps do go up. By how much is the question, but they don't have a ton of options. So George Kittle, I do like for GPPs. Couple other options I want to mention. So TJ Hawkinson at 4.6. Oh, sorry about that, guys. TJ Hawkinson at 4.6K. Love the matchup for him. It's just a matter of, can Stafford stay healthy? I'm really hoping he can because I have a good amount of exposure to this game. And I think Hawkinson and Marvin Jones Jr. are underpriced if Stafford can stay healthy. So I do like both the Detroit targets here in Hawkinson and Marvin Jones Jr. I think Noah Fant is a viable play at 4.4 just because targets, right? 7, 11, 9 targets. Again, Denver offense has been struggling, but Fant and Judy I think are punt plays you can look to. Couple other value tight ends like Juju Smith. I don't think it's going to be super popular. Don't mind him for GPPs. He's had some big games, again, more early on in the year, but again, if you want to pivot off of a chalky, Derrick Henry's going to be really popular. So people are not going to want to play Derrick Henry with a target, right? So all these Tennessee pass catchers are going to be lower owned for that reason. And that's why I think it makes sense for these guys in GPPs. I do have interest in Evan Ingram too because of the matchup, right? 7 and 10 targets. He's a guy that they like targeting a good amount. And again, good matchup here. So Ingram, I think, is a viable play. And then, if you need to punt the position, I think a guy, Darnell Parham at 2.9, just because he played over 80% of the snaps. There's no Hunter Henry. So that's kind of what I'm thinking for tight end. As far as defenses go, there's a couple defenses I think you can punt with. The Jets defense, just because, the price point, right, 2.3K. Patriots are not a fantastic offense. I think the Browns will be pretty popular here with Mason Rudolph playing quarterback. I think you can punt with the Browns. Let's see. And then if you can get money and get up to the top with the Ravens or the Colts, they obviously look good, but you're going to have to pay a premium for them. So again, defense is a really high variance position. I personally think the Browns are going to be the most popular defense. If that's the case, for cash games, maybe you play them. For GPPs, if a defense is going to be really, really popular, I'll just look somewhere else because it's just such a high variance position that if the Browns D are going to be that popular, I'm just fine going to one of another cheap defense in the similar price range. But that's really what I got here, guys. Let's see if we got any more news. Again, just following Roto World Football. Again, the reason I'm not high in the bill is Matt Barkley to see meaningful snaps. It's just an uneasy feeling there. So I don't think I would risk it. But all right, let's get to some questions here. Falcons defense is the play. What's their price at? Let's see. They're at 2.4K. Yeah. It's just a matter of, again, how much does Brady in that offense play? Cleveland defense. Yeah, I think Cleveland defense is going to be one of probably the most popular defense. But again, for GPPs, I think it makes sense to look elsewhere. Would you rather go Ogunbowale or one of the flat min running backs? So I I probably would rather have one of the flat mid running backs. But I think Ogunbowale is still viable, and he will be lower owned. Ty Johnson, Jets D. Yeah, you can definitely pair that, right? There is some correlation with running backs and defenses. Ty Johnson, again, they said he's going to be their feature back. He's involved in the passing game. Jets defense is a viable pivot, I think, off the Browns defense. So I do like that. Favorite wide receiver for cash and GPP. Favorite value wide receiver. It's tough because there's a lot of guys here like that are in play for value. Again, I wouldn't go to those Bills wide receivers like Brown, Gabe Davis are kind of out of, are kind of off of. I think like Shenault, there's like, I'll name like 5 or 6 options here. You got like Shenault, you got Jerry Jeudy, I think like Mooney, Chad Hansen, the Chargers wide receivers, and like Josh Reynolds. I think that's like 5. I don't have a super strong take on those guys. I don't. But I think there's like a group of like 6 or 7 guys you can look to. Pringle, a viable GPP play. Yeah, so he's a guy that I'm not really worried about playing time wise. So like if they end up resting like Hardman and Robinson in the second half, Byron Pringle should play. And he should be the Chiefs' number 3 wide receiver in this game. Long shot, Phillip Rivers or Drew Lock. Wasn't really interested in either, but I think if I'm going to go to one, I would go Phillip Rivers. I like the matchup there for the Jags. And yeah, this Colts offense has been pretty solid. So yeah, I'm not a big Phillip Rivers fan, but long shot, yeah, Phillip Rivers. Hansen or Jeudy in cash? So that's a tricky one. That is a good question. I like, obviously, the quarterback play better for Houston. Judy's the more talented wide receiver, clearly. I guess Jeudy, but that is close. Lamb or Jones Jr.? So I think, again, the safer option probably is CeeDee Lamb, just because of Stafford's health. But if Stafford stays healthy, I'm pretty high on those Lions targets, so I like Jones Jr. a lot for GPPs. Exactly. Best 4K flex option, running back or receiver. So I think the safest is probably a guy like Ty Montgomery, just because he's in the Saints offense. He's like their only healthy running back. They like targeting running backs out of the backfield. He was a receiver before a running back. Favorite flex under 4,300 for not Ty Montgomery. So I think for cash games, it would probably be one of those other cheap running back plays. So either Rodney Smith or Ty Johnson. That's probably what I would do for cash games. Thoughts on Callaway with no Saints? It's just the Saints wide receivers, no one really played a ton. So you can go there in GPPs, but I'm probably not going to do it. Justin Jefferson or Swift? So the upside, I think, is higher on Justin Jefferson if you can get to him. Thoughts on Slayton? He is underpriced. He's been struggling this year. What's his price? I think he's a 4-1. I mean, he has at 8, 9, and 8 targets. I think you can punt with him just because matchup alone. So, yeah, again, there's a lot of viable. Like, you could throw him in the mix, too, of those really cheap wide receivers. Ingram or Gesicki? That's a tough one. Miami is a little bit thinner at wide receiver. Jakeem Grant. Gesicki's at 4-2. The Dolphins obviously have something to play for here. I think Gesicki might be a little bit safer, but I do like both options there at tight end. Is playing Russell Wilson crazy? It's not super crazy. It's definitely contrarian. Where's Russ at? So he's at 7-3. Hasn't really had huge upside recently, but that Seattle passing attack should be pretty low owned. I mean, the pricing is coming down like Metcalf and Lockett, so a Seattle stack will be super, super low owned, but you got to take some risks if you're gonna if you're trying to win a GPP here. Calvin Ridley or AJ Brown? So I would prefer Ridley. Ridley a good play? I think so. If Stafford goes down, Swift is still going to get a ton of work. Yeah, but I mean, did you see how that Lions offense just couldn't move the ball when Stafford went down that last game in Tampa Bay? So, Gaskin, Taylor, or Gaskin and Montgomery? That's a really good question. So basically Taylor versus Montgomery. I do like the matchup for both. Both should be, kind of bell cow backs. I'll go Montgomery, but that is like, you're splitting hairs there. DK, can you fade Henry and Cash? In cash games, I don't know. I don't know if I would fade him if I play Cash. And the reason being is you don't care about ownership in Cash. Like, Derrick Henry is going to be the chalk. So, chalk Derrick Henry. Do you want to lose your day already when Derrick Henry just goes off? I think, obviously, I like the fade in GPPs because of ownership, but cash games, you maybe play him there. Wide receiver, 6,700 and under for cash games. So, 6,700 and under for cash games. That's tricky because if I knew Tampa Bay was going to be full go, play the whole game, I would say Godwin. Don't really trust the Pittsburgh wide receivers with Mason Rudolph. Again, Robert Woods playing with the backup quarterback. I don't like this range. I don't like it. I think maybe rearrange something, or you leave a bit of money on the table. Maybe go a guy like Corey Davis. I know he's been a little up and down, but it's a great matchup here. I don't like that range. I would try to get up a little bit more to like Cooks or like AJ Brown. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of that range. Malcolm Brown viable in GPPs. Got to monitor the status of Cam Akers. Cam Akers is out. I do like Malcolm Brown a good amount. Gaskin, yeah, so again, Taylor versus Montgomery, in my opinion, are kind of splitting hairs there. I think it's very, very close. Both are going to be heavily involved. Both are involved in the passing game. My lineup for tournament is Trubisky, Dave Montgomery, Swift, A.J. Brown, Allen Robinson, Jameson Crowder, Ingram, Ty Montgomery, Cards D. So you're going with a Bears stack. So you're stacking Trubisky with Dave Montgomery with Allen Robinson, but you're not running it back with any of the Packers. I mean, if I'm playing two guys from the Bears, I might try to run him back with someone from Green Bay. And obviously the clear bring back guy is Devontae Adams, but you're going to have to pay premium for him. So it's pretty contrarian. Yes. Yep. Cores are the same besides John Brown. I still think we're good. So yeah. John Brown is the guy that I would get off. Irv Smith or Evan Ingram in cash? I think I'll go Evan Ingram. What is the ideal amount of players to stack in Minnesota, Detroit? It depends. I think, a tournament like stack usually is quarterback with wide receiver, bring it back with one player on the opposite team. So 3, I would say. Ty Johnson or Rod Smith? That's a really tough one. I think Ty Johnson, I think Rod Smith, and I think Ty Montgomery are the best value running backs on the slate. So, Johnson versus Rod Smith. I'm a little bit more confident in that Panthers offense, but I think Rod Smith will not be the full bell cow back. Will Ty Johnson be, though, too? I'm not fully convinced he will be. If we go to the Jets, they still have, I believe, a couple other backs on the roster. Where are the New York Jets? That's a really good question. It is. So Jets and running backs. So, yeah, they still have Josh Adams. I think he'll probably mix in a bit. So that's really close. I'll go with Rodney Smith. The only reason I do that is because I'm just a little bit more confident in the Panthers offense. Best quarterback, 6K and under. 6K and under for quarterback. So I think the perfect GPP play here is Stafford. Just because the matchup's great here. He's got all those injuries, so no one's going to play him. There's huge risk, though. Like, enormous risk with this play. So that's why he's in play for GPP. So you want a little bit of, I guess, safer option. I don't know if I'd say Matt Ryan's safer, but he's going to have to air it out a ton. Trubisky also, this is a game they have to win. Decent matchup. So I would say one of those 3 quarterbacks, and depending on your risk tolerance. Thoughts on Watson, Swift, Johnson, Jefferson, Browns, Cooks, Ingram, Montgomery? Yeah, I think that's good, Ryan. Irv Smith is viable. Exactly. Good contrarian stack. Where's his price at? So he is. Where's Irv Smith? He's at 3.9K. He's their best pass catching tight end. I think he is definitely a viable play for sure. Adams, Cutie, Rodney Smith. So Devonta Adams, Kiki Cutie, and Rodney Smith, or Dave Montgomery, Cooks, and Chenault for GPPs. I like both options. I think just it's really scary to fade Devonta Adams. So, and there's a lot of value. So I think I'll go with the first option. Thanks to the advice, DK, of course. Green Bay and Titans defense playing for anything. Marvin Jones Jr., Ty Montgomery, or Ronald Jones and Richie James. I'll go with the first option. Well, first option for GPPs. Again, Marvin Jones Jr., more of a GPP play, strictly dependent on Stafford's health. So I like the upside a little bit more with that first one. DK, cash. Rodgers, Ty, other Ty. Okay, so I'm guessing that's Ty Montgomery and Ty Johnson. I like that. Devonta Adams, Jefferson, Chenault, Irv Smith, Jonathan Taylor, and the Texans D. I don't know if I'd play the Texans defense. I'm guessing they are mid-price, but I don't know if I would do the Texans D in cash at least. I think I would try to get up to either the Browns or like the Jets. So you might have to move something around there. For cash games, I don't think I would play the Texans defense. For GPPs, again, defense is a high variance position, so you can punt with anyone. But Jones Jr., Ty, let's see. Irv Smith was chalk just yesterday. Don't know about contrarian. You think Irv Smith is going to be the chalk today? I don't know if he'll be the chalk. I mean, I think he's a decent option here. If Irv Smith is going to be the chalk, there's a lot of good pivots. Obviously, like Waller and Kittle at the top. That's pretty obvious. I like Hawkinson if Stafford can stay healthy. I think Noah Fant's a good option because of targets. Gesicki, Miami's playing for something here. You have Juju Smith right below him. You have Evan Ingram right below him. So, yeah, if he's going to be the chalk, I'm perfectly fine going elsewhere. Can you fade Henry to get to Watson, Ridley, Adams, and cash? So that's a good question. I think you can, just because like Devonta Adams is like kind of like a running back in cash. Like you can just play him in cash. And Ridley has a ton of upside. Watson I really like. So when you say it like that, I think you could. Again, it's 15 games, and there's still guys with a lot of upside. So, and you're getting like pretty high floor guys. Even though the wide receiver, again, are a little bit riskier. Like Ridley, Adams, feel pretty good about them. So I think you can do it. Lock Henry, Ty Johnson, Adams. Let's see. So many cheap tight ends. There's a lot. Worried about Titans locking up playoff spot before games start. So that is a good point, right? The Titans could have the playoff spot locked up. And if they do, does Derrick Henry play the full? Does the Titans offense go full go? I don't know, right? So like that could realistically happen. And if he's going to be like super, super chalk and then like only plays a half or something, right? So like that is a really good point. Lock and all cash. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, most of the time, and Walker brought up a good point with like Adams and Ridley and Watson. Like those guys have pretty high floors too. DK's a lock. Isn't Darwin Thompson? Yes, he is. But they still have Daryl Williams. Le'Veon might play a little bit. Baker 5,500. I just like spending up a quarterback in cash. For GPPs, sure. 4,200 and under for cash or wide receiver. Let's see. So, I think for cash, at 4,200 or under, Judy because matchup, or Laviska Shenault because the Jags are super, super thin. I would go one of those two guys. Cash, Rodgers, Ty, other Ty, Adams, Jefferson, Shenault. Yeah, so again, the Texans defense for cash is one that I'm like, just Gesicki or Hawkinson. I think Gesicki's safer. I think he's safer. I like the upside a decent amount, though, on Hawkinson. Thanks for the show, bro. Let's get this money. Good luck, of course. How does this look, DK? Tannehill, Gordon, Montgomery, Adams, Brown, Judy, Andrews, Brown, and the Browns D. I think it's a little bit contrarian, but does have upside, right? You're going with Tannehill to pivot off of the Derrick Henry chalk. Is Taylor a good pay up? Jonathan Taylor, I think he's a pretty good pay up. Yeah. And you got him, you got Montgomery, you got like Myles Gaskin. There's a decent amount of good plays in mid-range at running back that I think go overlooked today because the chalk build, I think, will be Derrick Henry plus 2 value running backs. I think that's going to be the chalk build for today. So those mid-range running backs will go overlooked. But there's like 6 or so guys that I like that have a good amount of upside. Right? Taylor's one of them. Montgomery's one of them. Myles Gaskin is one of them. I think, the Detroit Minnesota, you have DeAndre Swift. You have Madison on the other side. I mean, Jeff Wilson. There's a lot of like plays in this mid-range that are just going to go overlooked on a 15-game slate. Ty Montgomery and DK or Zeke and Hilton. I'll go with the first option. 3 minutes before lock, get your lineups in. Yeah, make sure your lineups are saved and in. That is a good question. That is a good point. I should probably double check to make sure I have everything good here. I do. Okay. Zeke, Elliott, or DJ Moore in my fantasy league? I think Zeke's a little safer. Yeah, again, I think the Jets are like a perfect pivot off of the Browns D. If the Browns D are going to be that popular, I'm fine going with the Jets. Steelers wide receivers viable. I don't think I would do it on the 15-game slate with Mason Rudolph playing quarterback. I don't know. Myers or Jones Jr.? Wait, which Myers? Oh, Jacoby Myers. I would rather have Marvin Jones Jr. I don't trust that Patriots offense. Dan Arnold or Parm. I would rather punt with Parm. Austin Dillon. I wouldn't play Austin Dillon today. I faded Henry and AJ Brown. Yeah, so I think that's a nice way to get different on the slate. Yeah, I think it's Parm. I really like. Yeah, I think Judy is one of the better value plays. I think. Who's Austin Dillon? He is the third string. I believe it's the third string running back for Green Bay. Where are the Packers? Or AJ Dillon, I mean. He did have 21 carries last game, but yeah, I don't think he gets that again. So I don't know why I said it. Did I say Austin Dillon? Yeah, AJ Dillon. Or someone said Austin Dillon. Yeah, I knew what you meant with AJ Dillon. I knew what you meant. Not a bad idea. Just had to fade the Minnesota stack. I like that stack way too much. Cousins, Jefferson, Thielen for me. Yeah, I mean, again, I'm pretty high in the Minnesota-Detroit game. Like that's the game that I use to stack in GPPs. I know that both teams are not playing for much, but I just like the matchup on both sides of the ball. Austin D. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's a NASCAR. I'm pretty sure that's right. I'm pretty sure he's a NASCAR driver. Thanks, DK. Yeah, of course, guys. Thanks for checking out the live stream. I think we hit close to 300 viewers for this live stream, which is not bad at all, concurrent viewers. Yeah, I agree. I like that Minnesota. I like the Minnesota stack today. Thoughts on Watson with Henry, Montgomery, Marvin Jones, Ridley, Slayton, Hawkinson, Rodney Smith, and the Browns. I think that looks really good, Walker. I think that's like a good cash game lineup, right? You're playing Henry with the 2 cheap running backs. Marvin Jones obviously is the one fringe just because Stafford's health, right? So there's a little bit of risk there, but you got Ridley. I like the upside there. Slayton, Hawkinson. Maybe what you could do is move up from Ridley to to Devontae, but no, the Detroit game locked, right? I was going to say maybe move up from Ridley to Devontae and then down from Marvin Jones for cash just because of Stafford's health, but I think you're still fine. So, ownership-wise, the guys that I have in this early game, so I have 3 players from Detroit, Minnesota. I have Justin Jefferson, who's 33% owned. I have Marvin Jones Jr., 14%. I have Hockenson at 3%. So I liked that stack. Jets defense at 17%. That's what I got going early. And then I got my Deshaun Watson stack going for these later games. Darrell Williams, Le'Veon might play little. They have him. They have Darwin Thompson. I feel better about the other cheap running backs on the slate. Not saying he can't get there, but I think like those other running backs like Montgomery, Ty Montgomery, like Ty Johnson, like Rodney Smith. Those are the guys I would look to. Yeah. Of course, man. All right, guys. I'm going to call it a day here. I'm going to go watch these games, but I'll be back for NBA. So, NBA stream will be, I'll tweet it out when I'll be live, but I'll be back in 4 or 5 hours here for NBA. So good luck, everyone in NFL. Hope you guys have a great day, and I will see you guys all later if you're interested in NFL. Or NBA, sorry. Good luck tonight, guys, and I will see you guys all later.